going on, people? LP2000 right back at you with another video. Yes, welcome back to Leslie Chambers Kaiju Reviews on behalf of Summit Kaiju. And today we're taking a look at another exquisite Godzilla piece from the illustrious S Plus roster. And yes, this is going to be, let me just say this right now, this is going to be a long review somewhat. Because if y'all know me and my history with this figure, or at least with this design, you already know what time it is. So today we're taking a look at the X Plus 25cm Godzilla 1964 Standard Edition from obviously my favorite film of all time in the Godzilla franchise, Mothra versus Godzilla, or Godzilla versus the Thing. I mean, seriously, why did they call that back in the day? You know, but us hardcore Godzilla fans, or just at least Godzilla fans in general, know this film better as Mothra versus Godzilla. And as you can see, I have the beautiful figure here, but I don't have the box because I got this figure loose, you know, so I don't have the box. But the box is basically, hold on, let me try and grab one. This is basically it with the box. You know, the same thing with the 25cm Godzilla 1984. You know, it's a similar Toho Large Monster Series boxes, window display, red, blue, 54 Godzilla, and you know, that's it. That's the kind of box that it came in. You know, nothing special, anything like that. So that's it with the box. But that's not the official box for the figure because, like I said, I got this figure loose off of Reissue, and I got it, I think around 4 months ago. And I want to give a huge shout out to Tyler Boots Carlson for helping me get this figure, because he's the guy that I go to when I want to get Rics and stuff like that. But he also helps me navigate through Reissue. And if you don't know what Reissue is like the Japanese equivalent to eBay here in the States. And sometimes if you can navigate the site by yourself, you're going to need a middleman to help you out. You know what I mean? So that's why I have Tyler Boots Carlson to help me out. So once again, Tyler Boots Carlson, thank you very much. I really do appreciate it. And the reason why I'm doing this review today, well, for a couple of reasons. For one, at the time of this recording, we are being battered here in North Carolina by Hurricane Florence, and I've been stuck in the house for a couple of days. And I was going over my collection because at the time of recording, I got a few things coming already from Japan as we speak. You know, the 30cm Jet Jaguar, the 25cm Ric Boy set of Space Godzilla and Little Godzilla. And I looked on my collection to figure out what else could I review. I mean, I got other reviews in the works coming, like the Sakai 54 and a couple other things around here. Gamma 1995, the RMC. But I realized I got this figure of the 64 Godzilla 25cm a few months ago, and I have not done a review for it yet. So I figured, you know what, I'm going to do a review on it. I mean, obviously, it's my favorite Godzilla design out of all of them for my favorite movie in the franchise. And another reason is the fact that I think when it comes to the 1964 Godzilla pieces that X Plus has brought us, I believe this is the one that doesn't get talked about a lot. Not because it's ugly like the 25cm 84 that some folks believe that it's ugly, or believe it's not a superior 84 piece in comparison to the original 30cm. But I think that between the gigantic 64, which is an awesome piece, as well as the original 30cm Godzilla 64, as well as the reissue, the Ric Boy with the blue dorsal plates, which is quite arguably probably the best Ric Boy feature, or at least Ric Boy figure of all time when it comes to certain people. I think lost in the shuffle is the 25cm. That doesn't get talked about a lot, and that's a shame because honestly, this really is a superior piece too. You know, it doesn't have the size of the gigantic. It doesn't have like the awesomeness of the blue dorsal plates of the 30cm Ric. But at the same time, I think this really is a solid piece and deserves a lot more love than it gets, you know. Not because, like I said, people think it's ugly or it's inferior. I just think it gets lost in the shuffle between the gigantic and the 30. Of them two being awesome, you know. This one gets kind of lost in the shuffle. It kind of like it gets lost in the cracks, you know, so to speak. So I'm here. I'm here today to really show some love to this figure, you know, and really is an amazing piece. Stats on this figure: it was originally released 2012, I believe. This is the standard. The Ric Boy came with 2 mini Mothra larvae, I should say. One larvae was like straight, and the other one was like curled or whatever. And it was reissued. Godzilla himself was reissued as a Ric Boy feature of the 1964 Mothra that came out in 2015. When they brought forth the 1964 Mothra, which you see in size comparison later on, they had Godzilla here, this full figure of Godzilla, 25 centimeter, as the Ric of the set. And I think that's probably one. Correct me if I'm wrong. This is like one of the two times, only two times, where Godzilla himself is actually the Ric board feature of a particular figure. Normally it doesn't work that way. Normally Godzilla is the main draw and something else small is like the Ric feature, whether it be a Super X or a Mini or whatever. The second time this happened was when they reissued Biollante, the 25 centimeter Biollante as a light up, and they brought in the 25 centimeter 89 as like the Ric board feature of that. You know, even though the whole set was a Ric, they added in the 89 25 centimeter as like a little option. So like I said, between this one and the 89, it's like the one and only two times where Godzilla himself was, you know, the Ric board option versus being the main draw. So, but other than that, that's my backstory with this figure. You know, once again, I love it. I really do. I think it deserves a lot more love and a lot more praise. And a lot more attention. So if you have in your collection, maybe hopefully through this video, maybe I can just, you know, make you reassess it. Maybe you can look over it with a new fondness or whatever, and just realize, you know, nothing against the gigantic and the 30. This one is a great 64 piece in its own right. So speaking of that, let's get up close and personal with the 25 centimeter Godzilla 1964 from X Plus Standard Edition. All right, let's get up close and personal. Okay, folks, here we are up close and personal with the X Plus 25 centimeter Godzilla 1964, my favorite Godzilla of all time. And yes, you're going to hear a lot of that during the course of this video. So before we get into Godzilla himself, let's talk about the base here, because he does come with this great base. And let's take Godzilla off of here. And this nice base, kind of like the 30 centimeter Mecha Godzilla 1974 base. You know, it has somewhat of rocky, mountainous countryside type of texture on it, you know, and also features grooves of Godzilla's feet right here and here. And all you have to do is just slide Godzilla's feet into the grooves and he can stand properly like that. So that's nice. Or you can, if you don't want to use the base, because sometimes I don't really like using the base, especially when I have it with my Ghidorah three-headed monster setup. So what I normally do, if you have one of these plastic tail stands that they have been bringing, at least putting with the current releases of X Plus figures as of late, all you gotta do is just put it underneath Godzilla's tail and he stands fine like this. So I kind of actually prefer this in a way over the base. Don't get me wrong, I love the base, and I'm glad it's part of the package. And I always say it's better to have it and not need it versus need it and not have it. But if you have this figure, or if you're going to have a chance to go after this figure, you can always use one of these tail stands. All you have to do is use the tail stand to uplift his, lift up his tail right here at the base of his tail, and he can stand properly. So that's nice. So I actually prefer this when, you know, putting it with the Ghidorah three-headed monster setup. So I just probably leave it here for the duration of the review. But yes, this is a nice representation of the 1964 Godzilla. You know, it's just like it's just like the gigantic and just like the 30 centimeter. You know, tree bark like skin of Godzilla, charcoal gray. The claws are awesome. You know, the bone white color of the dorsal plates is awesome too. Just an accurate representation of the 1964 Godzilla, and what this figure shines and has in common with the gigantic, in my opinion, is that he has the sculpt of Godzilla is like he's walking. He's like he's mobile. So I like that. Versus the 30, even though I love the 3064, but he's just standing there more statuesque in a way. But between this 25 and the gigantic, he has more of a dynamic pose, more of an expressive pose of him, like I said, in mid-stride. You know, as he's walking through the countryside, or he's about to pounce upon Mothra, or he's about to trash Nagoya, whatever you want to call it. But I like the sculpt of Godzilla being mid-stride here. He looks really good. And his body's kind of twisting a little bit, as you can see, like right here, you know, as well as from the front here. Now, that's the thing. This is where I find the figure lacking just a little bit. As you can see, look at the face. Now, don't get me wrong. From the front, he looks real. That's the thing. From the side, he looks really, really menacing. You know, with his eyes like that, and his mouth is open. You know, with the mouth, you know, teeth individually sculpted, redness in the tongue, whatever. But when you look at it head on, and that's one thing about the '64 Godzilla, as far as the design, he had a really sinister look, a really evil, malevolent, just evil look. But when you look at him from the front, it doesn't come across that way. You know, and that's why I feel the this sculpt really lacks. It's just the face doesn't look as menacing. Just my opinion. It doesn't look as menacing as the gigantic or the original 30 centimeter. But that's like the only flaw I find with this design. But see, as I turn it right here, you see, you know, it kind of like changes where he does look a little bit more sinister now. Kind of like the '62 Godzilla where he looks different. You know, he looks awesome in my opinion from the profile view like this, but when you turn him around and have him looking face on or head on, he just doesn't have that same look. He looks like a completely different Godzilla. With this sculpt, as far as the face is concerned, he just doesn't look that sinister to me. I mean, that's just my opinion. Maybe because the way the sculpt was made or whatever, but from the side here, he does have that sinister Godzilla '64 look. You know, but aside from that, this really is a nice piece. It really is a nice piece. Like I said, off bone white color on the dorsal plates, as well as his toes and his claws here. His arm position is just more upright, just like Mr. Haruo Nakajima did during the course of his performance as Godzilla in this film. And it's really, really awesome. It really is. So, I'm really enjoying this piece, you know, and that's the thing. For years, I have not been interested in trying to get this figure, and I know you're probably saying to yourself, really, with you being a huge '64 fan? And yeah, because I was really content with the 30, and then once I got my hands on the gigantic, I was really content with that one. But then one popped up on Buy for like a good price. I was like, you know what, I might as well go after it. You know what I mean? Because this figure, like the '84 that I mentioned in my video, at least a couple of videos ago, of the '84. This guy doesn't pop up online that often. As a matter of fact, you find him more on Mandarake and Baiyi versus the States. And when you do see him over here in the States on eBay or whatever, he's more horrifically, at least horrendously overpriced. But at least you can find good values, at least good prices for him on Mandarake and Baiyi. As a matter of fact, he pops up more on Mandarake every now and then than I've seen on Baiyi. And sometimes you may see the Rick up there, or you may see the standard. I know in the past like 3 months or 3 or 4 months, I've seen this guy pop up on Mandarake at least 3 times. And like immediately they're like gone because people recognize what a great piece this is, at least from a collecting standpoint, and especially if you're a '64 fan. So basically everything about this figure is awesome. The tree bark skin, light skin, the dorsal plates, the color arrangement on his skin, you know, the sculpt of him being like in mid-stride, you know, it really speaks for itself, you know. And it's a shame, like I said, that this is not talked about enough, or at least a lot more as they do with the gigantic and the 30. Now, I have seen a lot more folks gravitate towards the 30 because they find the gigantic lacking, you know, with the whole jaw situation or whatever. And that's fine. I mean, everybody's entitled to their opinion. But I think as far as like superior pieces go, this should be also in the conversation too. It really should be. And so that's the purpose of this video, just to give more love to this figure. And like I said, if you have this figure in your collection, maybe I can persuade you to give it another look through, and maybe I can convince those who don't have it to try and go after it, you know. Like I said, it does get lost in the shuffle between the gigantic and the 30. But this is also a great Godzilla piece for the '64. Especially if you're a huge '64 fan, try and go after this piece. Hopefully X Plus will try and reissue this. Like I said, it was only reissued once in the 2015 Mothra '64 set. But you never know. X Plus has reissued, you know, past figures, you know, 2 or 3 times over before. So maybe they can get to this one. This one and the '84. Those two I really feel X Plus should really try and reissue, you know, with something different as the Ric feature, or just make it a Ric exclusive. But either way, they shouldn't try and reissue this figure. If not, with the buzz of the Godzilla fandom really hot right now, especially going into next year with Godzilla 2 from Legendary, as well as Godzilla vs. Kong the following year, Hopefully, X Plus can make a deal with Diamond to bring forth these 25cm figures of Godzilla to the market for really affordable prices. And maybe they can choose the 64, the 84, the 66, the 67, 25cm figures I'm talking about, and bring them back to America as they have done with the 30s. You know, but if they do that, or if you find one on online for a good price, especially the 64, go after it. Really, really, please go after it. You will not be disappointed. All right, so let's go with at least 1 or 2 size comparisons, and we'll wrap up this review with my thoughts of Mothra versus Godzilla. And you know it's going to be positive. You already know it's going to be a positive review, you know. So, all right, let's go with the first size comparison. Okay, folks, this is the first size comparison, and alongside Godzilla, we have the 25cm Mothra 1964. Yes, with the egg on the base. Yes, and you have a great setup to the film. Only thing that's missing is like 2 in-scale Mothra larvae, you know. Now, I did mention that 2 of them did come with the Ric edition of the 25cm 64 Godzilla. But in my opinion, I don't think they are too much in scale. You know, at least from pictures, from what I've seen from pictures from other collectors that do have the Ric. Even though they look good, you know, but they still are not in scale with Godzilla as well as Mothra here. Now, the 25cm Mothra 68 larva figure, that's in scale. So if they made a couple of those, you know, with blue eyes and added on with this, with these 2, you know, you have the perfect setup to this movie, you know. But even without the larvae, these 2 look really great together. Yes, they do. As a matter of fact, on the base here, on the base of Godzilla's foot right here, there's actually a groove, kind of like the grooves in the base of Godzilla himself. You know, the rocky base that I showed y'all earlier. There's a groove right here of Godzilla's foot. So basically, this setup was tailor-made for this Godzilla. It really was. And as you can see, they look great together. As a matter of fact, that even kind of threw me for a loop when I first watched the movie, because let me give you let me give you a little brief synopsis with my history with this movie before I go into the commentary portion of it. When I first found out about this movie was in existence, and they were advertising it on TBS back in the day, you know, the Superstation. They showed that this film was coming like the following week on a Saturday, but they only showed clips of Godzilla's encounter with Mothra in Godzilla vs. the Sea Monster. Remember at the end of the film when Mothra comes to the island and she had that brief encounter with Godzilla? They only showed clips of that fight. So I was thinking that Mothra vs. Godzilla was going to be like a clip show like Godzilla's Revenge, you know? But then once I watched the film, and I'm getting to my point here as far as like the size between these 2, I did not know that Mothra was so big in comparison to Godzilla. You know, especially when Godzilla comes across the egg. The egg was really huge in comparison to Godzilla himself. You know, and then once Mothra comes onto the scene, and you really get a sense of scale of how Godzilla is kind of small in comparison to Mothra, it's like, wow, you know, I did not know that. You know what I mean? You know, versus like the previous film, King Kong vs. Godzilla, where Godzilla is clearly the bigger of the 2, you know, in the film between him and Kong. But in this film, Godzilla is the smaller of the 2. But also at the same time, he's the villain, you know. And that's like one of those rare occasions where the villain in this film, as well as other Toho films, even though they're the villain, they're like the smaller of the 2. You know, in this film, or as I mentioned earlier with Biollante. Obviously, Biollante was twice the size of Godzilla in that film, but yet Godzilla was still the villain. Or Gaara in War of the Gargantua. Sanda is clearly the bigger Gargantua, but yet Gaara is still the villain. He's the smaller one, but he's more dangerous, you know? Kind of like Godzilla here and Godzilla in 1989. So I find that very interesting, you know, that Toho can pull that off, you know, where the smaller of the 2 combatants is the villain versus being like the underdog, you know, as we come to know here in the United States. So I find that very interesting. But once again, this is a great setup right here. And also, if you had the 25cm 64 Rodan and the Mothra Larva 68 25cm that I mentioned earlier, you can have a great setup to Ghidorah 3-headed monster. But I've already done a video of that called X Plus Setups devoted to Ghidra 3 Monster. Please check it out in the archives of the channel. And you'll see more of those 4 together, as well as King Ghidra. So my point is, this 64 Godzilla 25cm from X Plus is really an amazing piece. And whether you combine it with this or the other monsters from Ghidra 3 Monster, you can't go wrong. You see how vital of a piece this really is. Once again, it's a great, great piece. It sizes well with Mothra here, and it's a great setup for the movie. It really is. All right, let's go with one more size comparison, and we'll wrap this review up. Okay, folks, this is the last size comparison, and alongside the 25cm Godzilla 1964 Standard Edition, I have his bigger brother. Yes, the Ric Boy Gigantic 64. Yes, yes, yes. Now, I know I put this as a segment in my review of the 64. Conspicuous by its absence is the original 30cm 64, which I do have. I have the Diamond Reissue. But I wanted to show these two together because, like I mentioned earlier, when it comes to the sculpts, I actually like the sculpts on these two better. Nothing against the 30cm, but he's more of a statuesque, like I said, with him standing there, with both feet firmly on the ground, like he's standing still. And in the film, in my opinion, Godzilla was constantly moving. He was always moving around, which is why I like the sculpts between the Gigantic and the 25cm better. Because like I said, they both seem like he's like in mid-stride, like he's walking. Because in my opinion, like I said, he was always mobile. Whether he's, always moving to attack a city or being bombarded by the military from the air, from the sea, from tanks, and even from Mothra herself. Godzilla was always moving in this film. And I like how X Plus has demonstrated this in both of these two sculpts. Like I said, nothing against the 30cm because I do love the 30cm 64. Anything 64 I love, especially the upcoming Death for Real that's coming. Can't wait for that. As far as like pose and what I look for in the 64 Godzilla in reminiscent to the film or in conjunction with the film, I think these two sculpts really, really convey that really, 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 really well. And once again, this guy deserves more love. But that's another story for another time. As a matter of fact, both of these figures deserve more love. Once again, the purpose of this video is to show more love to the 25. Like I said, it kind of does get lost in the shuffle in the conversation when you talk about 64 pieces from X Plus, because the Gigantic, that was released recently, as well as the awesome 30cm. They kind of take over the conversation. They're kind of like the first thing that people talk about when it comes to superior 64 pieces. But the 25cm is a 64 piece in its own right. I think all three of them shine in their own way. I think the original 30cm shines as probably the best sculpt or how Godzilla looked in the film. The Gigantic obviously is best known for its size. The sheer size of the Gigantic is just awesome. And the 25 is also just a nice representation of the 64 in conjunction when you put it with the 64 Mothra as other figures, for setups. So all three 64s, in my opinion, shine in their own way. And they prove why they are a vital piece in your collection, especially if you're a 64 fan. All right? So that's pretty much it with the size comparisons. And let's wrap this review up with my thoughts on Mothra versus Godzilla. Or Godzilla versus the Thing. I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to call it Godzilla versus the Thing. That was one weird title that I really couldn't get behind, Speaking of titles, you know what? I actually prefer the original title that I saw when I first saw this film. It was actually called, back in the day when I first saw it, it was actually called Godzilla vs. Mothra before I knew about the great 92 film from the Heisei period. And by great, I mean not so great. But when I first saw this film, it was first titled as Godzilla vs. Mothra, which in my opinion is more of an apt title. Because in the previous film, King Kong vs. Godzilla, obviously King Kong was the star of the film. He was the main draw, nothing against Godzilla, but clearly King Kong was the star of the film. That's why his name gets top billing. But in this film, Mothra vs. Godzilla, clearly Godzilla is the star of the film, even though he's the villain. So in my opinion, it should be called Godzilla vs. Mothra. Don't think about the 92 version, but I think for a more apt title of the 64 film, it should be called Godzilla vs. Mothra. Even though he's the villain, he should still get top billing because he is the star of the film, in my opinion. Alright, so speaking of Mothra vs. Godzilla, or Godzilla vs. Mothra, or Godzilla vs. the Thing, let's talk about that. Alright, let's go. Okay, folks, I'm back, and let's talk about Mothra vs. Godzilla, or Godzilla vs. Mothra. And once again, I make no bones about the fact that this is my favorite film of all time in the Godzilla franchise. when I was younger, and of course I've talked about this story many times before, but I'll try to give a short version here. My first film was Godzilla vs. Megalon. Around the same time I started watching other Godzilla films that I had access on TV, like Sea Monster, King Kong vs. Godzilla, the original Godzilla, Ghidorah Three-Headed Monster, Son of Godzilla, Godzilla's Revenge, Godzilla 1985, Godzilla Raids Again. And after I saw all those, that's when I saw Mothra vs. Godzilla. And ever since then, this film has been numero uno for me. Number one for me. You know what I mean? This, to me, is a true Godzilla film. Everything you want in a superb, excellent Godzilla film, you have in this film. You want a Godzilla film, at least you want a film that has great special effects, watch this movie. You want a film that has great music and awesome music that basically enhances the visuals of the film, watch this movie. If you want to have a kaiju movie that has an interesting human story, that's not making you look at the watch to figure out when the kaiju is going to show up, watch this movie. If you want to see a great kaiju movie that has interesting and spectacular monster battles, watch this movie. If you want to see a movie that has Godzilla at his sinister, malevolent best, with him as a great, threatening, dangerous antagonist, aside from GMK, watch this movie. Everything you could ever want in a great, epic kaiju film is in this movie. And coming off the heels of King Kong vs. Godzilla was quite, honestly, and I make no bones about the fact, and I will admit this, that King Kong vs. Godzilla is the most popular Godzilla film of all time. Even though this is my favorite, I will give credit where credit is due. Now, up until recently, with the release of Shin Godzilla, I think Shin Godzilla has surpassed King Kong vs. Godzilla in terms of what it made at the box office. But I think for its popularity amongst fans, Godzilla fans, and casual fans, King Kong vs. Godzilla is basically the most popular Godzilla film of all time. So coming off the heels of that was also a tough act to follow. And also, one thing I also love about this film is the fact that the monsters in this film are treated really, really seriously. You know, with all due respect to King Kong vs. Godzilla, both the monsters in the film were played almost for comedic purposes. And that was by design from special effects wizard Eiji Tsuburaya. He wanted the Godzilla film series to get away from the dark, gloomy films of 54 and 55 and try to broaden their audience to a more kid audience to make the films a lot more colorful and geared towards children, which is why King Kong vs. Godzilla has the action in it that it does, and why the monsters are seem somewhat playful, and what Godzilla does, that happy dance. All that was by design to cater to a more younger audience, which is fine. But in this film, Inoshiro Honda, the director of King Kong vs. Godzilla, and as well as this film and other great Godzilla films from the Showa period, he felt that nothing comedy-wise should be related to the monsters, which is why Godzilla has such a dark, serious role in this film. You know, and also for the fact that in this film, Godzilla's role, or at least his presence, is not even acknowledged up until his unexpected appearance. You know, and I really do love that. In 54, 55, and King Kong vs. Godzilla, Godzilla is introduced early on, whether his presence is implied like in 54, or if we do visually see him early on in 55 and King Kong vs. Godzilla. Godzilla's presence is basically just brought to the audience's attention early on in the prior three movies. But in this film, Godzilla's not even acknowledged. You don't even know when Godzilla's going to show up, and he just pops up. You know, and I really do love that. That's one of the best things that I love about this film, where they kept Godzilla's appearance as more of a surprise, you know, because the story involving Mothra coming to claim her egg and the human story of the humans trying to help Mothra get her egg is really, really, really intriguing and very interesting. And, you know, it kind of makes you forget that Godzilla's in the film anyway. But once he pops up and shows up, everything just stops, and it's all devoted to stop him. And I love that, because when he shows up, everything just stops. By this film, Godzilla's reputation is firmly established, where the characters in the film, they are so fearful of him. They're just so just shooken up by his presence when he does show up, which is honestly, I thought they should have reacted to him like this in King Kong vs. Godzilla, because mind you, by the time King Kong vs. Godzilla comes out, Godzilla would have been away. If we talk about the Japanese version now, King Kong vs. Godzilla is loosely based off the events of Godzilla Raids Again, where Godzilla is, you know, buried in an avalanche. But then when he reappears in King Kong vs. Godzilla, he appears from the iceberg. So clearly they coming off the events of Godzilla Rise Again. But even after a 7-year absence, because Godzilla Rise Again was in 55, King Kong vs. Godzilla was in 62. You would think after 7 years of people thinking that Godzilla is gone forever, he's not going to come back, you would think that when he does finally show up in King Kong vs. Godzilla, they will be fearful of him as they are in 64, but they're not. But in this film, when Godzilla does show up and when he does pop up, they have this sense of dread, like they really don't know what to do. That's how much of a threat and dangerous Godzilla is in this film. They don't really know what to do. They don't know how to deal with him. He is such an awesome, unstoppable, dangerous, threatening, fearsome entity that they don't know what to do. Even some characters, even when the idea of the military going to stop him or trying to stop him is brought up, even a couple of characters say, you know what, I don't think that's going to really make a difference anyway. But the idea of Godzilla coming back and everybody's like, what do we do? But the military's position is, okay, he's back, but we got to kill him. We got to kill him before he kills us. And I like that. And this is the last, in my opinion, besides the fact this is the last film in the Showa era that portrays Godzilla as an awesome villain. But this film was able to provide colorful visuals, but yet still maintain a dark, serious tone to Godzilla's character. Like I said, you have everything you could ever want in a Godzilla film, especially a kaiju film, in this movie. And everything that they do to try and stop him doesn't work. This also leads me to the fight sequences. Now, when I think of a fight scene, I think of either two combatants. They are basically trying to kill each other. One is trying to kill the other one before the other one kills the other one, basically. But in this film, if you really read between the lines and really look at the battle sequences between Mothra and Godzilla, the adult Mothra and Godzilla, and then the baby Mothras against Godzilla at the end, in a way, Godzilla doesn't really try to fight back. If anything, he's kind of more bewildered of everything that's going around him, because everywhere he goes, he is met with people panicking. Obviously so. Obviously so. He is met when Mothra comes in. Mothra starts to batter him from the sky. When the Mothra larvae attack, at least when they hatch and they try to attack him at the end, Godzilla comes across like he doesn't know what to do. I would say he's defenseless, but he doesn't really fight back, even though he does give off some offense with his atomic breath. But to me, Mothra in both fight scenes, if you want to call it fight scenes, they're more trying to stop Godzilla. They're more trying to keep him away from humanity, or at least trying to keep him away from the egg in the first fight, or at least trying to just try to find a way to just extract him from humanity, forever. And that also goes back to the theme of Godzilla being truly unstoppable. And this is, like I said, the last Godzilla film, in my opinion, where Godzilla is treated as such a serious threat. Because after that point, with Ghidra, Three-Headed Monster, Monster Zero, the Showa series would go towards a more lighter tone, with Godzilla having more of a vibrant personality. But I'm glad, like I said, come off the heels of King Kong vs. Godzilla, because you would think that come off the heels of King Kong vs. Godzilla, would that film have more of a campy tone, that the next film would be even more campy. But it's not. It's more of a dark, serious take on Godzilla. And it's a more dark, serious take of what would happen if a creature like this were to come to humanity and try to destroy the world. Like, what would really happen? Even though the films are a little bit cheesy and the special effects are not the way they are today, it's still captivating. It is still awesome. It's still an amazing tale. And this is the film that I would recommend to anybody, whether you're a Godzilla fan or a casual fan. If somebody who didn't know anything about Godzilla, this is the film I would highly recommend. Because the monster fights are not cheesy as you would find in, let's say, Megalon or Gigan or Mechagodzilla. It's just a great battle involving two contrasting monsters, one land-based and one airborne. And especially the character involving Mothra, knowing that she's dying, but she agrees to fight Godzilla even though she's dying. And that's another great thing about Mothra vs. Godzilla, Mothra's character. But that's another story for another time. But I love that about Mothra's character in this film, that she agrees to fight Godzilla even though she's dying, and she goes up against a monster that she knows she won't be able to win, but she fights him anyways. That is awesome to me, And once again, the whole movie is centered around Godzilla once he shows up. The story involving the egg and Mothra in the beginning of the film is really, really good. But once Godzilla shows up, he is really a game changer. He really is. And at that point, it's all about stopping him. The egg situation falls by the wayside. people's petty problems against each other falls by the wayside. It's all about, okay, Godzilla's back. We have to kill him before he kills us. And I really do like that. So please give Mothra vs. Godzilla a rewatch. You know, you can find them on Amazon, or maybe you can try and track down a Japanese Blu-ray of the film. But trust me, it really is a great Godzilla film. A true Godzilla film. And it's awesome to me. You know, I love the film so much. I can go on and on and on and on about it. But I'm trying to keep y'all here for 24 hours. So, once again, I love Mothra vs. Godzilla, and I love this figure, the 25cm Godzilla 1964. So try and go after the both the movie as well as the awesome figure here. You will not be disappointed. You know what I mean? So that pretty much concludes my review of the X Plus 25cm Godzilla 1964 Standard Edition figure from my most favorite film of all time. I know you heard it a lot, but I gotta say it again here. My favorite Godzilla film of all time. Godzilla vs. the Thing, or Mothra vs. Godzilla. If you have any questions, holler me down in the comment section, or hit me up on Facebook via Leslie P. Chambers. We'll definitely go from there. Yes, once again, it's a great piece, you know, and it should get more love. Like I say, in comparison to the gigantic as well as the original 30cm. This really is an amazing piece, and it also shows that X Plus, when it comes to this Godzilla design, every figure they have made of this design is awesome. There's not been a misfire when it comes to the 64. I can't say the same about the 62. Like, the gigantic is fine, the 30 is great, the favorite sculptors line, King Goji is fine, but the 25, not so much. The Burning Godzilla, gigantic, awesome. 30cm, amazing. The 25cm, not so much. Or the GMK, the gigantic GMK, amazing. The new 25cm favorite sculptors line, amazing. The original 30, amazing. The Sakai, amazing. In my opinion, the original 25cm, not so much. But you don't get that with the 64. Every representation of the 64 in each scale, whether it's the 25, 30, and a gigantic, in my opinion, is great. And you can't go wrong with either one of those great pieces. So if you can, try and track down this piece. You will not be disappointed. Once again, he does pop up on Mandarake more so than eBay and Buyee. So maybe you can hit up Tyler Boots Carlson. Maybe he can help you out on trying to score one off of Buyee if one is up there. Or just come through, or just go up on Mandarake's website and try and find one. Like I said, in the past like 3 or 4 months, I've seen at least this guy pop up at least 3 times. And he's immediately gone thereafter. So if you can find one for a good price, please get your hands on this figure. You will not be disappointed with the X Plus 25cm Godzilla 1964, whether it's the standard edition or the Rip Boy edition, for my favorite film in the Godzilla franchise, Mothra vs. Godzilla. Alright, once again, lots of stuff is coming here on the channel. I got a couple live streams I got to get off the ground. The RMC Gamma 1995, the Sakai 54, the 25cm Godzilla 2004, the 30cm Jet Jaguar, the Space Godzilla Rip Boy set with Little Godzilla, the Sakai Shin, that's coming at the end of this month. So a lot of stuff is coming here on the channel. So please stay tuned. You will not be disappointed. And get this figure. Get the 25cm 64. You will love it. You will love it. You will love it as much as the gigantic as well as the 30. You can't go wrong with this piece. Alright? So I thank you for watching. I appreciate it. And I will see y'all again on next figure move review. Alright?